Saeed Khan made a post on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago now, and it heated up really well. And he knew it going into it. He said it was apparently an unpopular opinion to begin with. And Kelly's going to drop the link into the chat. But Saeed argues that product managers are wasting their time with vibe coding and prototyping with AI instead of doing real discovery work and delivering insight. He says it's a huge lost opportunity, and product managers should be focused on exploring markets, understanding problems, and shaping product direction through strategic inputs. So we're going to talk about that today. Let's get started, and let me just introduce our first cut panel here. We're going to start off with the man himself from the land of maple syrup. He's not here to sugarcoat. This is Saeed Khan, Managing Director at Transformation Labs. Welcome, Saeed.
Thank you very much, Jason. That's the
Great
first
to
time I've
have
been
you.
introduced that way, so that's great.
I'm glad you like it. And if you put ketchup on your hot dog, he will definitely judge you. We got Steve Johnson back with us, the CEO of Product Growth Leaders. And up next, we have he gave up the Einstein cosplay, but now he spends his time making CTOs smarter. Say hello to Nandu Shah, president of the Atlanta CTO Club. And she's taught execs to stop workshopping dashboards and start making real decisions. Say hello to Diamonde Henderson, the founder of Full Stack Product Manager and a force for clarity in a noisy world. Welcome, Diamonde.
Thank you.
So excited to have you. So we've got Saeed in Toronto. We've got Steve in remind me where you are, Steve.
Virginia.
Virginia, Nandu in Atlanta, Diamond in Portugal, and I'm in the backwoods of Arkansas. So I'm just here to keep the chaos strategic. Devin's in the studio, and if my backwoods internet goes out, he's taking over the show and running the board. So we'll figure that one out later too. All right, but let's get into it. So Saeed, you wrote the post that kicked off this conversation. Can you give us a one-word diagnosis? What's driving the rise of vibe coding?
AI, one word. So I think ease, simplicity.
Yeah.
Those are probably the two words I would use. Possibly opportunity. I don't know. It's a natural progression, right? Like there's the technology is great. Right? There's nothing wrong with the technology, and it'll get better, I'm assuming. Yeah, like I don't see, I don't, I think it's funny. Anytime you say anything, whether in person or on the internet, people will misinterpret it. And I think what happened in the post is people thought I was anti-vibe coding, and I'm not. I'm anti-product managers spending their time doing vibe coding to create prototypes. And I mean, I thought I was being very explicit in the wording I chose,
Mm-hmm.
and yet there was a lot of debate. So I think that's really what it comes down to, right? I think product managers spend far too little time doing product management and do spend far too much time doing project management and delivery management and all these other things. And we shouldn't just keep adding onto the plate. I mean, if you don't mind, I'll just say like it was inspired. I wrote the post because twice in 2 weeks, I'd heard from product managers that they were told that they need to learn this because it's going to be part of their job to create prototypes and landing pages and things like that. And I just, and so I think my message was really more to product leaders, like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you saying, hey, your job is going to be to work with other teams who will use these tools and be more collaborative, but you have this other job and no one else is going to do your job, and your job is to drive business value and things like that. I don't know. It's Steve always says, and I'll quote Steve, other people hide their jobs in product management. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve.
Right.
But I think also product management tries to do other people's jobs. And I think you just kind of have to call it out when it happens.
And to jump onto that just briefly, only less than 20% of product managers have ever had training. And what they had training in was Scrum, which is not product management.
Right.
So I think one of the challenges is with an ill-defined position like product manager, many of them have learned to be designers or developers and yet haven't been trained in that either. But the part that Saeed calls out so wisely is who's doing market discovery? I mean, it's all well and good to say, God spoke to me in a dream, let me go vibe code some shit. But wait a minute, what problem are we trying to solve, and how do you know that's a problem? Have you talked to a customer lately? And that's my most depressing question that I do in my training, is I'll ask, when was the last time you talked to a customer? And frequently the answer is a year ago or never. So how in the world can we represent customers in our discussions with designers and developers and stakeholders if we've never talked to one? And I think that's really Saeed's big argument, is before we get too busy doing everybody else's job, why don't we do ours just for a week, see how it works out. If not, we can keep going, we can go back to the dysfunction we had before.
Exactly. And I was going to ask you if this was really more about a skills gap or a focus gap, and I think you answered that really well. It is a focus challenge. The I was speaking to a product manager just the other day as well, and she asked me, she said, how much time should I spend learning vibe coding? And my answer to her was, she said, as a product manager, how much time should I spend learning vibe coding? And my answer was, as a product manager, zero. If you're personally interested, as much as you'd like to, personally. But that
Let me agree with you in a weird way, Jason, and then I'll turn it over to somebody else.
I'm used to you agreeing with me in
As
weird
a
ways.
as a product manager, how much time should you spend learning to play guitar?
Exactly.
And the answer for me is a lot. I now have 4 guitars in the room, but that has nothing to do with product management. That has to do with my interest and my passions. And on my website, I can write some JavaScript, and it's fun as can be, but it's also not product management.
Yep.
I can see that Diamond is dying to jump in on this.
Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts. So one, I want to say, Saeed, in your post, I like that you clarified between should not and must not. I think that's important here. And Steve, I like that you talked about, well, I like that you train people and you talked about focusing on the customer. I think that's important. The point of view that I'm coming from is not just from product management, it's also from corporate development and then from investing, and it's also from teaching. And I'm explaining this just to say that I have used the product management skill set in a variety of capacities. And the thing that is most fluid is communication. And what there often is when you are doing product management, and I define product management not as building products, not as building for customers. I define it as finding opportunities and delivering value. And I see product management not as like a single skill, but a conglomerate of skills. And so with that being said, that's like the point of view that I'm coming from. So going back to communication, vibe coding is actually the responsibility of a product manager. And it actually enhances the ability for a product manager to execute and manage the decisions of their team. So people say that product managers aren't people managers, but they are not, but they are decision managers. And effective communication leads to more effective making and effective execution of decisions that end up coming out of discussion groups and whatnot. And vibe coding allows for greater participation and increased alignment because you now have a visual representation that is more robust than a mock-up or a wireframe, and it allows individuals to get aligned in real time, and your source of truth has much higher fidelity at a higher rate, and also at a higher rate, and also just it allows for the product manager to also have some sort of, I don't want to say greater control, but at the end of the day, the product manager is accountable for decision outcomes. And so when the product manager is facilitating the structure of a thing and design maybe necessarily isn't, it does allow for a greater quality control and less leakage. So with that being said, I think that as a communication tool, vibe coding is essential and therefore the responsibility of product managers.
So, Saeed, we saw a lot of the comments to that effect in your thread as well, in the folks that are coming in. And I saw a big distinction in perspectives between commenters who worked in small organizations where a product manager literally had to wear many hats, and I saw a lot of commenters who really appeared to be of a founder mindset as well, are saying, hey, there's your great tool. So Diamond, from that perspective, it sounds like what you're describing to me, and I could be wrong, is product managers are responsible for making sure that we have actionable prototypes to learn from and communicate with. Is it necessarily true that the product manager is responsible for building the prototypes with vibe coding, or just ensuring that they're there?
So what I'm saying is if a product manager desires to have alignment, they could write a ticket, right? Or they could actually construct and illustrate out what they intend on building, or like intend for the team to build, or think that we should, or craft a starting point for the team to build upon. And so I don't see that this is necessarily a revolution, right? Because before we got into this fragmented process of product management where we have data analysts, go-to-market teams, right? Like pure play product management, a product manager was prototyping and wireframing, right? Like at the Google days, right? The early Intel Intuit days, right? Or early Intel HP days, I think it was, right? Or IBM days, right?
Mhm.
PMs were actually doing the drawing out of wireframes, mockups, and then doing the go-to-market work. And so I don't see that this is a complete differentiation from the past. I think that this is bringing has back into the present and allowing us to do what we used to do more effectively, in allowing product managers to bring people along in a way that we maybe were not able to before. So so no product manager should necessarily be building it and shipping code. But if you want to build the right communication strategy for your team, I think vibe coding is a part of that.
Gotcha. So, Saeed, you're wanting to jump in on that. I want to get back around to Nandu here in just a minute as well. But let's Saeed jump on in here and go ahead and respond.
Thanks. Wow. I have to like violently disagree.
Perfect.
I'll use that phrase. Going back to the past is not an option. Like, yes, we used to do lots of things. I used to use Excel to do certain things. I'm not going to use Excel to do certain things anymore. Like, if you're working in a company and you don't have designers, and product managers are forced to do 20 different things, great. Continue. If you're a product manager and you're already creating these things, mock-ups and prototypes and whatever else, and there's no one else who can do it, great. Use this because it will help you. The technology can help you and it'll reduce the time you spend, in theory. Diamond, you said product managers don't have to write code. Well, guess what you're doing when you're vibe coding? You're writing code. And it's a small step from, hey, can you do that mock-up, to can you create that MVP, to can you work with engineering to do that? It never will end. And what you have to do, and I'm saying this to product leaders, is you have to draw the line. You have to say, hey, there's lots of things we can do, but here's the things we need to do. Because nobody is going to do the things product management should be doing. If product managers aren't doing discovery, guess what? Other people are not going to do discovery for you, or else they'll make decisions based on their understanding of the market. It's really, I think it's if you're working in a company where designers are doing this work, great. Designers can do that work in 1/10 the time, or whatever the time is, right? They'll save time. And if it's about communication, like communication is more than just a ticket on one side and vibe coding on the other. I think communication is about collaboration. Communication is about working together and having a common context. It's about ongoing, data and information exchange. Like, I worked with designers, I've worked with UX people, and when you collaborate well, it's great. And I think companies need to understand that you can't just keep loading more and more things. Like, why not put product managers in sales? Like, hey, they understand the product, they understand the customer, give them some sales training, get them to sell. They'll be great salespeople. Like, do product management and move forward.
Well, Saeed, I'd love to know, and I want to respond to you, but before this, I'd love to ask you a couple questions. So one, how do you define product management?
I'm glad you asked. So the role of product management, it's a cross-functional role that drives product success. And that's, in the simplest terms, what I think of when I think of product management. It's about the business alignment. So like, why are we working in product? We're not working in product to build things. Working in product to address market needs through our products and services. And we're trying to drive business success, whatever that is, customer acquisition, revenue, profitability, whatever, market share. And we have to have that connection. And the only way we're going to have that connection is if we understand the market, if we're aligning the initiatives that we're doing with the market, if we're having clear strategy, et cetera, et cetera. If you think of the product process, and you can break it up however you want, but I usually break it up into 3 parts. There's before you build, during your build, and after the build, right? And the place where product management can provide the most leverage is before the build and after, right? The build, and when I say build, it's that whole design, prototype, develop, et cetera, et cetera. There's like entire organizations that are focused on that. And yes, you want to participate in that, but you're not going to drive that. You're not going to be spending all your time there. And again, I'm going to quote Steve because I've known Steve forever, and Steve has such wonderful quotes. You know, what is it? The answer to your question is not in the office, something like that, if I'm saying that correctly. I don't know. It just like before you get started, know what you're doing, know what markets, know what problems, know your competitors, know all that stuff. Bring that information in, because if you're not going to bring it in, sales is going to bring it in. And guess what? You know what sales is going to do. Or leadership will bring it in because they talk to big customer X, right? And big customer X wants this very particular thing, whatever. Like we've all seen it. And then afterwards, after the product is released, there's lots to do, right? And I think people talk about discovery and delivery, but there's more than just those 2 things. If you don't mind, I'm going to just say one more thing. And Brett, I'm going to plug, I'm running a survey right now. And I just put the link in, and we have some preliminary results. And one of the questions is given this list of activities, do you want to spend more time, less time, or are you spending the right amount of time? And it's very clear. Like we have about 100 responses right now, so it's you know, it's still small but not trivial. People want to spend more time working on a product roadmap. These are product managers, right, who responded. People want to spend less time overseeing dev stand-ups and meetings. People want to spend overwhelmingly more time analyzing product usage data, right? People want to spend more time overwhelmingly working with leadership, working with stakeholders, et cetera. Think about the kinds of work that product managers do. And they're saying, this is not just me saying on LinkedIn, they're saying, hey, we want to spend more time doing the important product management work, not spending time in dev and doing these dev related tasks. So I'll stop there.
Okay, I'm just going to respond to this just really, really quickly, given this conversation off. So I still want to go back to what you said earlier, which is should not and must not. Because what you spoke very matter-of-factly in a more sort of must not way, but I think it is the should, which should people be doing. I 100% agree that the strategic parts of product management, the data, access to secondary information, primary information through research and interviews, that discovery work, and then the translation of that, critical. What I have found, and I think what most people find, is when you take a piece of information, one person can look at it and have multiple interpretations of that piece of information. And that piece of information, based upon that interpretation, could then convert into 3,000 different approaches for things that we should build, specs that we should make. So going back to this notion of vibe coding actively acts as a means as a communication channel, and an effective one, you are able to reconcile differences in understanding through illustrations very productively with vibe coding. And while you say, I said product managers shouldn't be coding, technically they're not coding, right? The AI is coding for them. They're prompting, they're communicating, right? They're communicating to a system, having a wonderful conversation with a non-human entity in order to create an illustration that allows for them to align with design, allows for them to align with their manager if they're having a conversation, allows for them to align with a partner product management team, allows for them to align with an engineer who doesn't understand an edge case, or an engineer who tells them that what the product manager believes should be built cannot actually be built, and they need to figure out an alternative and then communicate that to another stakeholder. So I vehemently believe that while product managers should not spend 100% of their time vibe coding, they should, much like they use Notion and Miro, have the ability to prompt Claude, Devin, or any other AI system in order to effectively communicate to their stakeholders. And if they don't have that in their arsenal, then I think that you will see a slowdown or potential bottleneck in communication in product development today.
Love how passionate we have viewpoints in this. I want to switch over to Nandu for just a second. And Nandu, from a CTO's perspective, is it more harmful or helpful for product managers to bring their own prototypes to the table?
I hate that you saved me for last, because I know that you brought me here because you know I have opinions. So I'm just going to hold forth for a moment. Probably I'll try and save the most serious opinion for last. But so number one, I 100% believe that a product manager working for Gibson should learn to play the guitar. And actually that ties into my last point that I'm going to make. Number two, and I'm deadly serious about this. I believe the world would objectively be a better place if everybody knew how to code. And that has nothing to do with coding. It has to do with abstraction and different ways of thinking. Not just coding, all kinds of different ways of thinking. Number three, Saeed, you said product management is a cross-functional role. I challenge anyone here to name any role in any company that would not benefit from more cross-functional exposure and influence. So I want to take that off the table. Every role is cross-functional to some degree. And furthermore, my last point, I think as humans, the most important thing we can do is develop empathy for other humans. And one way to do that is to behave more cross-functionally, understand what someone in another group or department is doing, sometimes by doing little bits of it. And one place where I'm in violent agreement with Diamonde is that these new tools, all these AI tools, not just the coding tools, they are new tools for expression that help us deliver our thoughts more quickly. Because the hard part of anything we do, anyone's job, any company, the hard part isn't the mechanics of producing a document or writing code. It's getting an idea into the world, right? From concept to reality. And anything we can do to speed that up is a net positive. I don't think that product managers should spend a significant amount of time coding, but I also don't think that there's a material difference between prompting an AI tool, say, draw me an org chart, right, with these team members on it, versus build me a website that does these things, right? Roughly the same amount of time. We're talking about minutes of input and minutes of processing and some kind of output that you can then take to another human and have a reasonable discussion about. I think those are the same kinds of activities. So I think talking about vibe coding in isolation is throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Interesting. I saw a recording of Andre Karp talk at Y Combinator Startup School a few weeks ago, and he was talking about essentially how programming languages have changed, and now English is the programming language. As you got to go watch the whole thing, and I'll try to drop it here in the chat in a minute. But the premise was, as AI gets better, translating into a language that systems can use will be more and more automatic, so that English language instructions, everybody becomes a programmer. To your point, Nandu, I still struggle with it being a responsibility to deliver prototypes using vibe coding or any specific technology. Would we have said 6 weeks ago or in January of this year that it is the product manager's responsibility to use Figma to create prototypes? I think we would have all agreed that that wasn't the responsibility. It's a great tool, it's a great skill to have, but in a well-funded, well-structured organization, you'll have a product team and a designer and a product manager and an engineering lead or a technical lead who can collaborate and discuss and build prototypes in collaboration with an expert in that tool, not being the product manager. I don't know how much that's changing because of the accessibility of vibe coding through English language skills.
Listen, I'd say it's more appropriate to parallel vibe coding with systems design. I don't think it's appropriate to parallel vibe coding with using Figma for prototypes. The reason being is because if we're vibe coding is, how can I phrase this? It's vibe coding is a exercise that you can complete using a new technology. So the technology of like playing around with AI, like you can play around with AI by vibe coding, you can play around with AI by creating your Notion documents like with their AI tool, right? Like I think it's more so around like comparing the responsibility of a product manager to explore the use of AI to make their workflows more effective, more efficient, whatever, to get better outcomes for the team. And I think that parallel is best with like systems design and maybe even learning how to build a model, right? Like, because I think those skills are important for product managers, and I put vibe coding with that. And it just so happens that you can use this new technology, this new technical aspect of software development to prototype. So that's where I draw the line. So with that being said, my logic would then lead us to say, we require product managers to understand systems design. We don't require them to code, but we require them to understand systems design. We require them to understand what it takes to build a model. We don't require them to know how to compute GPU requirements, right? But we need them to understand what neural networks are and how that actually leads to model development without them having to build a model. So that's what I'd liken to, and then therefore that completes, my belief that vibe coding is an imperative for product managers as we move forward.
Wow. Allison, Herbert, I have to give you props. You told me there's no way we can cover this topic in the first cup. It's way too big. You are right. I don't think I don't think we are ready to stop on this, but it is time for us to start moving into our main program. So I want to say once again, thank you, Saeed. Obviously, it was a great post. It is, I wouldn't say it's an unpopular opinion, but it certainly is a controversial opinion. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this perspective evolves over the next 3, 6, 9 months. I'm seeing, like you are, a lot of product leaders who are asking and expecting their product managers to do increasingly delivery type things like vibe coding and building out data models. And product managers need to be masters of data, and we're going to talk about that with the Diamond here in just a few minutes. You need to be able to understand and make decisions from data, not just consume a dashboard. But we're being asked, as you pointed out, to do more and more and more. And where is the line? I don't know yet, and I don't know how the acceleration changes the lines and changes the roles and changes the team structure.
If I can just finish with
Yes.
one comment. So look, AI is here to stay. It's a foundational technology. It's going to go through our society, right? There's no challenging that. But I think what we have right now is an opportunity to fix product management. And anyone who's been in product management for a while knows that there's a lot of things that are broken in how technology product management works. And we, you can probably have a whole episode on that. So I think there's an opportunity here to say, okay, how do we realign what product management is doing, and how do we get focus on high value things and leverage this technology? Totally think that's the right approach. But what it has to be done is product leaders have to start with, okay, let's address the problems. Let's figure out how we can make product management more effective. And AI on its own isn't going to fix that. AI on its own isn't going to solve these problems. These are people problems. These are organizational problems. So I say that because I think that's the real issue people need to think about. Not just like vibe coding is this little kind of thing in the middle. Sure, maybe you do it, maybe you don't. It's up to you. But there's bigger problems, and leverage AI in places where it really makes sense. And I think there's a lot of potential. So I just want to say that because I think that's really where product leaders should be thinking about. And I wrote a blog post on it a few weeks ago, and I got some good feedback on it. I just put the link in, but I think the world in the future is going to be different. Let's actually take charge of that, not let others decide what we're going to do.
Proactive, not reactive. Yep. Well, thank you. It was a great post. I started to read the Medium post that you posted there as well. I haven't gotten far into it yet, but looking forward to finishing that. This was a great discussion. We'll have plenty more of them. Thanks for joining us, Saeed, Steve, Nandu, and Diamond. I was at Atlanta Tech Week a few weeks ago, and Diamond delivered this amazing workshop on the data interpretation gap. And I think her way of presenting some real world use cases and examples of looking at data and making real product management data decisions was just a ton of fun and really drove some points home. And so I asked Diamond if she would come deliver that to the Product Coffee audience, and she graciously agreed. And we are thrilled to welcome today Diamonde Henderson, who is the founder of Full Stack Product Manager. And I'm going to hand it over to you now, Diamond. Take it away.
All right, so I'll introduce myself a little bit later, but what I actually I'll do just a brief intro. So I am an instructor. As much as I am an investor, a product manager, I'm a teacher at heart, and I built a product management curriculum called Applied Product Management under my business, Full Stack Product Manager. And within that curriculum, we were teaching folks how to go from strategy into launching an experiment and then converting that into a prototype. And I predominantly taught career transitioners, but our core ideal market that gets the most value from our curriculum are those early career PM folks. Or at least that's what I thought. But what I learned is that most people thought that the curriculum was more senior level, but that was actually the intent. And the reason people felt that it was more senior than early career sort of junior level PMing is because of the fact that I was teaching analytics driven product management. And so that means that we focus on holding multiple data points together to derive meaning. And one session that we teach in that course is data interpretation. And as Jason mentioned, I brought that session to Atlanta Tech Week, and now we're bringing that to you today. So given that I'm an instructor, I like to frame things as a classroom. And so just imagine that you are actually in graduate school and we're about to have one of the best class sessions of your life. So we need to level set a little bit and set some cultural standards for how we'll operate here. So for giving and receiving feedback, there's some rules that we like for folks to follow. As for giving feedback, be specific and descriptive, ask questions and be curious, provide helpful suggestions, and be caring with your delivery. As far as receiving feedback, we say do not assume positive intent. I know most people like to say assume positive intent, but we're trying to be curious, and so we don't make assumptions. And so uncover the intent from others through questioning. Pay attention to key messages. Always clarify what you've heard, and then give yourself some time to process. You don't have to immediately say the first thing that comes to your mind. It just gives space for accurate or in-depth interpretation. So for some other house rules, we like to ask how or what, less so why. The reason is asking how or what is more disarming. And when you are sharing perspectives with others who may disagree with you, it's good to temper as best we can. You're not responsible for anyone's emotions, but you do contribute to the environment the emotion is experienced in. So just be cognizant of that for yourself. If you feel yourself getting riled up because you disagree with someone, it may not be because of them, it actually may be because of you. And so there's some regulating that you may need to do. Questions are gifts, not weapons of destruction. So highly gifted people sometimes end up feeling challenged when they are questioned, especially if they are in higher leadership positions for a long time. And so see a question as a gift and not a weapon, as someone trying to challenge you in a negative way, but more so in a way that just helps them to better understand you. No a-holes. Insecurity and fear are not welcome here. So share your point of view freely. The hope is that we all grow from each other's perspectives. And then share what you're thinking. This is an opportunity to refine your point of view and improve, not hide. And your thoughts and beliefs are not right or wrong. They just are. So about me, my values are integrity, courage, meaning, commitment, ingenuity, well-being, sovereignty, and intellectual honesty.